Well, welcome everyone to the August edition of Turf Tuesdays. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Jim Brosnan. It's great to have everybody back together for these sessions. It has continued to amaze me how well attended they are, and today's no exception to that. Before we get into kind of our topic for the day and our guest for this session, I want to go through some of the business that I know many of you who participate in these are interested in. First and foremost, that would be with pesticide credits. Anybody who is interested in pesticide credits, you have done everything you need to do to get the credit that you're after. When you registered for today's session, you were asked to provide all of your contact information, whether or not you wanted pesticide credits, in what state you wanted those credits in, and then to provide your license number or certification number. So you've done everything you need to do. If you stay with us for the full duration of our time together, stay with us for an hour, you'll get that pesticide credit. We use the information that you provide on that registration form to generate a roster that gets submitted to your state regulatory agency. So we'll take that. Those rosters will get submitted within the next 24 hours. Everything will be submitted to the states, and the process will be underway. If for some reason you do not see your credits post to your account in your respective state, that's something you should reach out to your regulatory agency about to see where it's at in the process. We get everything in a 24-hour period. We also keep historical records of every roster. So if you do run into an issue with your state, we keep all the rosters from every Turf Tuesday ever. So there's a full backlog of all that that can help you navigate if there's any uncertainty with your regulatory group. For those that are interested in continuing education units from the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, you can earn those from today's session. I will put up the code for the GCSAA website at the end of our time together today, and you will input that code into their website. I need to remind everyone, this has nothing to do with pesticide certification or accreditation at all. It is only for certified golf course superintendent education units. Also need to remind everyone that today's session is being recorded. The recorded video and audio will post to the UT Turfgrass YouTube channel, and then the audio will post to the Turf Tuesdays podcast feed on Apple Podcasts. Unfortunately, we do not have the ability to provide pesticide credits for archived recorded viewings. So you have to be with us live today for the duration of the hour to get those pesticide credits that you registered for. And then last but not least, if you do have questions as we go through today's episode, we encourage you to use the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. This serves two purposes. It allows us as a group to thread the questions and the answers together. Myself and my colleagues on the call, the turf team here at UT, will do our best to answer all those questions aloud and get them filtered to our guests so we can have a nice discussion. I think that covers all of the business related items for today's session. So let's get to the subject matter of the show. So we made a focus as a program to have more of our Turf Tuesdays in 2024 focus on UT alumni. Many of you know we're one of the biggest undergraduate turfgrass programs in the country, and we've had some really great alumni move on and be successful in the industry. And our guest today is a really good example of that, Andy Perry from Sod. He is going to talk to us today about not only kind of his journey into the sod industry and some of the cool projects that he's been involved with. He's been part of a lot of them, but also he's been pretty passionate about getting an alumni group of UT Turf graduates together. So we'll cover all that as a group. So without further ado, welcome, Andy, to Turf Tuesdays.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. I mean, I think a logical jumping off point, everybody on the call, myself, Dr. Sorokin, Dr. Horvath, Dr. Boland, we all know you pretty well, but we've got a lot of folks that join us on Turf Tuesdays that might not have heard your name before. So let's get them up to speed on who is Andy Perry.
Okay. Grew up in Middle Tennessee. Both my parents were school teachers. My father was a biologist, and so my love of plants started very early. I was probably from second grade until seventh grade. I was dropped off after school to high school to his biology department, where I listened to lectures for advanced biology for 5 years. So that kind of spawned my love of plants. It wasn't until much later that I got into turf. But during that time, seeing how that worked and being able to go through that, collections of leaves and all different sorts of things. But came to UT in 1988 and was originally a political science major, and kind of made my way through without without going to see an advisor, probably as much as I should have. And so I kind of got to the end and was ready to graduate, and graduated in 92 with a degree in education, and went to work for a publishing company in Knoxville for about 2.5 or 3 years. Really enjoyed it, worked with some fantastic people there, but I was inside, locked up. In the East Tennessee afternoons and mornings in February, as you know, if you go in at 7:30 in the morning and leave at 4:30, you're in the dark all day if you're outside. So I started kind of thinking, how do I get outside and do some different things? And at the time, Bart Cash had come back to East Tennessee, and Bart and I grew up in the same little town in Lawrenceburg, as did Will Meisenheimer, which is odd because at the time that we grew up there, I cannot think of 1 square foot of turf. So Bart had come back from Mississippi State and was doing the turf program at UT, and we started talking about it. And my first job at a golf course was actually when I was 24, I guess 25, at Bays Mountain. And I ran Bays Mountain for a little while, and I learned a tremendous amount about I learned a tremendous amount about the golf world with that. I learned a tremendous amount about diseases, and had no background with different pieces of it. But boy, did that help me down the road of being able to see and recognize things, because I would look at things and say, well, why is this doing this? Why is this doing that? And so as I left there, my next stop was at Cherokee Country Club. Worked with Chris Sykes and Ryan Blair. I think if you added the 3 of our ages together, I don't think we would have been 70 years old. So it was a great young group, and it was so much fun doing that, and met so many people. And it was probably a year or so after that Chris actually called me in his office and was like, "What are you doing? Do you want to be in turf?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do." And he said, "Well, you've got to get a turf degree." And so Chris was instrumental. He and Ryan both really were instrumental in helping me work around my schedule to come back to UT in 97 to work on a turf degree, which at the time was ornamental horticulture, landscape design. And so I did that for about 2.5 years under the tutelage of Callahan and Day and Williams, who were there at the time, and was fortunate enough during that time to meet some folks and help start the UT Turf Club. And then I went from there to Augusta for 3 years, and then back to Knoxville with the sod farm, and then over to Middle Tennessee. And now I currently work for Sod Star, and that's where we are.
That's quite the journey. I can tell you in my experiences at Bays Mountain, you probably learned a little bit about weeds to go along with your disease experienced?
I did. They were categorized into what MSMA would kill and what 2,4-D would kill. It wasn't a lot of over the top learning other than that for probably the first year, Jim.
Yeah, no, I can understand. And then the difference to go from there to Cherokee had to be like apples and oranges in terms of conditioning.
Yeah, it was a bizarre rise from there to Cherokee to other places.
So I know, Andy, you and I have crossed paths, as is true with Brandon and John and Becky too. You know, you've done some with BISOD, some pretty big sod projects over the past 5 years. I mean, you guys did you did the honors renovation, you did Valhalla. Give the audience a sense of what's involved in doing something like that. I mean, you could call it let's replace every piece of grass on the property. Maybe that's the best description. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing that I've learned over the years of doing these larger projects is going in and finding out what the expectation is. What is the true expectation of the club? Are they getting ready for just a tournament? Is it going to be what's going to be left there after the renovation? Is it what are the key things that they're looking for? Are they looking for a turf that's coming in? What's the playability standpoint of it? How long? And really just working through the logistics piece of it is the major aspect of those projects. But also setting the expectations of what they want, what they need, what we need to be doing from a grower's perspective, and giving guys what they want in the time frame that they can get it in the best possible shape. For instance, you mentioned Valhalla. Valhalla was one of the projects, and I know John will be on here next month, but that was one of the ones that was one of the first big ones that was really out of market for us. We farm in 6 states, but Valhalla, the soil type and the grass that came to Valhalla was out of Soperton, Georgia. So it was about a 10.5 or 11-hour trucking ordeal. So, the real magic of that is figuring out how you get the grass off the ground and on the ground in Valhalla in less than 24 hours. And so the timing of those things, the trucking, the pinwheeling of trucks would leave Georgia and come halfway, pick them up south of Nashville. They would go on to Valhalla. And I think there was 140 something trucks that were there. And we had one that was late. There was a wreck south of, and I say late, not within an 1.5 or 2 hour window. So
yeah, I think I recall 149 because I
yeah,
remember
147, 149. You remember better than I do.
Yeah, well, Philip Vineyard, John's assistant, told me once he was really kind of ticked off it couldn't be an even 150 because he was very like, I wanted it to be 150, a nice clean number, and it was 149.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, but yeah, a lot of that is a lot of the trucking piece of it is, but guys will also want certain things done to grasses before it gets there. How do you do it with the what's the pre-emerge level when it shows up? What's the fertility level? What's the time of year it's going down? How much time are they going to have to root it in? Did their project move from May until June or from June until August?
Yeah.
So, and it's most of the guys that do these big projects like this, I mean, it's way in advance. I mean, we're typically looking anywhere between 12 and 24 months in advance where we've already gone to and done kind of the scope of work, how we're going to do that work, how it's going to be executed, what's the construction crew that's on site, can they handle 3 loads a day? Or in the case of like Pinehurst number 10 that we did a year and a half ago or so, can they handle 12 a day, 15 a day? So it just depends on a lot of that. And it's a huge piece of our business as well to figure out how we run those projects and not it be a complete disruption to the other aspects of our business.
Well, yeah, that's one question I have is like, can you do 2 of these at once? Or when you're doing one of these, is it the whole enterprise is committed to that singular job?
No, it's well, It depends. So we farm around 7,000 acres right now.
Okay.
So, we have multiple sites that we can pull things from. So an average size sod farm, I believe, and this may not be completely correct, but an average good size sod farm, 400 to 500 acres is a nice size farm. And so if you think about taking that at the scale that we do it, and then manipulating, okay, this grass is going to go here because of this soil type. This is going to here because of a logistics thing. John's grass came from Soperton, Georgia, because the mix he wanted to use was so very close to the, it's about an 87-13-ish, 90-10, and down in Soperton, Georgia. And, the mixture is obviously not the same, but the perk rates and different things, they're awfully close. And so they were pretty happy with that when we sent that up. And we originally started doing it with Roger from PGA, Roger Meyer. So to answer your question, yes. I mean, last summer at one point, I had 17 golf projects going on at one time. And not all of them are huge projects. Well, but some of them were. For instance, we had a couple that were close to farms, which allowed us to do that, which wasn't as big of a disruption in our business as it was. But no, it's certainly a disruption. There's the other folks who run the other markets in Bisod, Sodstar would certainly tell you that golf is a disrupting force in in their business model sometime, especially during June, July. I would say 80% of the folks that we do these projects for will all give you a June 5th to June 20th start date, almost across the board. And so it's not that, so that's the big piece of it. And that's one of the things where I think that what we do kind of separates us from the scale of one from what we do, but also the logistics piece of it. There can be anywhere from 600 to 800,000 square feet of grass shipped every morning by 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So, and that's over 5 or 6 states, sometimes 7, 8 states, out of market jobs, which we're currently moving to Florida. We're doing about a 2,000 acre farm outside of Vero Beach right now, but we're also doing projects right now in Hobe Sound. We're doing projects north of Clearwater, Florida. We've got one in Naples, Florida, one in Jacksonville. And so, some of those become 2-day routes. So if you've got somebody in Naples that needs 4 loads a day, you've essentially taken eight of your delivery drivers off the board, because
Wow.
you can't do it. You can't do it over and over and every day. So when I have 3 of these out of market, I get a lot of calls from logistics during that time. And they, as much as I grump about them sometimes, and hopefully some of them are watching this, they really do. They really do a magic trick, and they are responsible for a lot of things that the sales and segment managers in Bisod get credit for. Because it really is a magic trick to show up with with 700,000 square feet of grass delivered by 10 o'clock in the morning without a whole lot of instances.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is, you kind of reading between the lines a little, my impression going into our time today was that maybe the journey from Soperton, Georgia to Louisville, Kentucky for the Valhalla project might have been the most complicated logistically that you guys had. But it seems like maybe there's even greater. That's not true. You might have ones that were a little bit more logistically complicated, because moving sod down to Naples and Hope Sound, that's not insignificant.
It's not. I think that Valhalla was that was the first big one. We had done Tiger's Place in Branson off of the Nashville farm, and that was a 2-day route. But that was also trucking was a little different at that time. That was 6-7 years ago. There were some things that were different that allowed us to approach that in different manners, to where we could pull things from smaller segments of ours. We could pull drivers there and load up and go. The problem now with a lot of it is when you have multiples going on. I'm not sure how we would have done Valhalla if we would have had Valhalla and the honors course at the same time, or Valhalla and the honors course and Naples at the same time, coming off of the same farm in Soperton. Because it does get segmented out when you don't have it coming off the same farm. You just have to, we have to do a lot of compartmentalizing with these projects, because you end up with, if you end up having 8 or 10 or 12 projects, or last summer with 16, 17 projects going, there's so many pieces of that become a relational piece of it, right? You've got 17 superintendents, you've got 17 assistants, you've got 17 construction superintendents, you've got 17 guys that are actually laying sod, you've got 17 drop points or more, you've got so it all comes down. And most of these guys, I know John, Will, and a lot of these guys do such a great job of the pre-planning piece of it. And so, and kind of us working our piece into it, and as big as our piece of it seems sometimes, we have to remember that we may only be 8% of the project. Yeah. Maybe 5, maybe 10, depending upon exactly what's going on in the cultivar grass and how far it's going and those sort of things.
Yeah. I mean, because like I know from the honors project, and there was a tremendous amount of drainage work that was involved in that. There was a tremendous amount of irrigation work that was involved in that. There was some root zone modification involved in that. And I mean, the sod on top was great, but to your point, there was a lot more than just a resod.
Yeah, I tell guys sometimes it's, we kind of get to be the icing on the cake in some ways. There's a tremendous amount of preparation of things that go into what when it gets covered up with grass, how nice it looks. But the devil's in the details before all of that, and lots of times that starts months in advance, and even a year, 2 years in advance, with irrigation systems going in and then coming in. And
well, I got to think, you mentioned the relationship part of the business, and for what you guys do, because we see this as we work with clubs, and whether it's a golf course or a sports field, or even sometimes a landscape property across the state, anytime between March 1st and May 1st, if they're managing warm season grass, and I've got some winter kill, well, then that's a 4-alarm fire emergency for that property. And maybe it's only 2 or 3 trucks, right? But if you've got these major jobs in the background that are 4 trucks a day for several months, it has to be hard to kind of balance the magnitude of this massive job versus the 4-alarm fire of a smaller scale, but it's no less important, right?
That's right. It's no less important. I mean, and a big piece of that is the maintenance piece of our business in golf segment and specialty turf, in that, an average golf course, uses a truck and a half of grass a year, almost accidentally, because of spills or trees falling, irrigation, tees, whatever, that they have problems with. And so being able to fill that void every year does become a big piece of it. And that's certainly a fast growing segment of our business as we've started growing that. And that's one of the things that we have had to address over time with the scale at which we do things, is we've had to address what's in market and what's out of market. What's in market as kind of standard everyday stuff, for site one, for direct customers, for homeowners, big box, whatever. And then what is segmented for what we've compartmentalized or segmented out for golf. Because there'll be a lot of times that as we go into these projects, I'll have to go to somebody and say, yes, we can do this project, but we can't do it in 3 weeks. We can this is a 5-week project for us to do this off of this farm the way you want it done, because we've got other things and other folks that are ahead of you. And I think that's the one of the big things that I seem like I spend a lot of my time doing these days, is most of the things that I'm working on right now are in 25, 26, projects that are going to be multi-year projects in 26, 27, 28, which sounds crazy to think about that. But at the same time, if you look at some of our larger markets, Atlanta market, Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, and going to Florida, I mean, there's 1,400 golf courses in Florida. I mean, that's almost as many as that's in the Carolinas and in Georgia, I believe. So there's a lot to that piece of trying to figure out what it is it can do, and setting the cadence and setting the timing of those is so important. As an example, right now we have the projects I was just talking about, as well as finishing up one in Columbia, Tennessee at Pillow Springs. We just did the greens at Old Fort in Murfreesboro. And so, Old Fort was supposed to be, I think, or Pillow Springs was supposed to be end of May. Old Fort was supposed to be the first week and a half, 2 weeks of June. Naples was supposed to be way off into middle of August. Jacksonville was supposed to start in July. And all of these projects ended up starting within like 5 days of each other because of weather, because of construction, because of these different things. And so you do have to pivot and just kind of drill down to where, what can we do and what we can't do. And knowing that you're probably going to make somebody unhappy. But, again, setting that relational piece of it and the expectation at the beginning of the project of, hey, if this is your project, this is the window we can do this in. If we go outside of this window, you're going to be sharing resources, and those resources, as they get aligned and assigned, especially on 2-day routes, we'll be so happy to have our inventory in Florida come online later this year and next year, which will eliminate a tremendous amount of headaches going down into Florida, because those become 1-day routes at this time. And so if there's 6 drivers, there's 6 full routes. If there's 12 drivers, there's 12 routes instead of having 12 and being able to do 6. So, yeah, it's a major piece of it.
Well, and inventory is such a huge thing. I think every sod production meeting I've ever been to, inventory is a topic, right? What does everybody's inventory look like? So I totally get that.
That's right. Well, and that's
Andy, how do you you mentioned big box stores and then golf segment, and I assume athletic field segment is another segment of the market. Like, how do you as a company parcel out or evaluate which, what's the sod that's going to the big box store versus what's tagged for golf? I get that varieties are probably part of that, but
sure.
like, what, assuming that the same variety is going to be involved, whether it's a big box store or a golf customer, how do you evaluate the condition, quality, etc., for where you're going to tag that sod into a particular market?
Gotcha. Yes. So one of the things that we try to do with especially the warm season grasses, okay, Bermudas and the zoysias, and even the centipede, it's a standard height of cut of 1 inch that comes off our farm. Now, if you want something in the golf or specialty stuff, sports field world, if you want 1/2 inch grass, you want it to come in. If you want one of the zoysias to come in at 300, we do that. But we try to standardize it. To answer your question, we try to standardize it on the front end to where we're shipping a disease weed-free product that's at 1 inch with most of those grasses. Fescue's obviously a little different. I think it comes in at 2 1/4, and centipede is maybe a little higher, not higher than 2 1/4, but a little higher than 1 inch. So really, it's just those all kind of fall into that same piece, and a lot of that too is what products can fall into that. There's a lot of Bermudas out there. We sell Tiff Tough, but those can all fall into the same. If you're going to have to mow a Bermuda 2 times a week or 3 times a week, if you're mowing it at 3/4 of an inch or 1.5 inches, if that's the desired height of cut, right? I mean, that's pretty much the deal. So if you just go ahead and set that at the beginning, you kind of take that standard operating procedure and move that into the segment.
Hey,
That
Andy.
makes sense. Go ahead, Becky.
So you said you did Old Fort. So those are prism greens, is that right? I'm pretty sure I
That's
heard that
correct.
through the grapevine.
That's correct.
Are you seeing a lot of growing interest in zoysia and on greens, and what is that looking like? I get questions about it. You know, I know we have a few courses that have gone that way here in Tennessee, but what have you observed?
So there has been a movement towards it. Not the movement that I think you saw with the Bermudas years ago, but there is a market for it. More nichey than the Bermudas, more nichey than maybe even some of the bents as you get north of the transition zone. But yeah, we've got Pillow Springs, Old Fort, Windermere in Tennessee right now, Concord, the Patch. So there's five sets, I believe, in Tennessee now. Tot Hill in North Carolina, which is an old Mike Strand's course. They did that and green surrounds. We're seeing as much movement with the use off the greens as we are on the greens, kind of what we call general use grass, not a greens grade grass. And a lot of that is just, well, the whole thing with that is how we take care of it at the farm, right? And the firmness underfoot and different things that you try to give somebody when you give them a product that is going towards a specific use, whether it's a green, an approach, a tee box, or what it is. So, you know, East Lake, the collars there and the green surrounds will be prism. Two of the projects down in Florida we're doing right now. We did one wall-to-wall in prism last year in Captiva. So the interest is growing, and we get asked to speak about it. I know that a lot of my time is educating folks with that, and Ken Mangum that works with us as well spends a tremendous amount of time talking and educating people about it. I think it's going to be something that folks will use. And, you know, are we at the end of what is the best variety out there? No, we're not. There's a lot of good stuff coming out there. I mean, from where you came from and with Ambika, I mean, she's got a greenhouse full of things that are just remarkable. And so there's a lot of good stuff out there. I do see a market for it, but I don't see it being like a big split as it is in bent grass and Bermuda grass.
So kind of, I guess, a little related to that, Andy. You know, what type of facility do you think is right for something like Prism? You know, because the range of places that you just described is pretty wide. Have you seen in the places you put it in, like, is there an ideal type of facility or an ideal set of greens complexes that set up well for it? I got to think expectation management is probably part of that equation. Like,
Sure.
Like, where would you think it right from what we know about it right now, it fits the best?
So we have it in some places that it's a good question. We have it in some places that are certainly higher end courses. You know, when I say higher end course, guys that are wanting 10 and a half feet every day. I think the biggest piece of that answer, Jim, probably lies in who's comfortable with managing a zoysia. That's been probably the biggest pushback that we've gotten, whether as we start to put these greens in, is, you know, Ken and I have like a 2-page write-up about that, you know, that this is basically saying this is not a Bermuda grass, you know, this is not a bent grass. These are the things that it needs this time of year, you know, and it's not absolutely specific to products and those sort of things. But as far as a facility goes, I think that until it's kind of the guinea pig effect, right? I mean, guys, as we stepped into getting Bermudas on greens years and years ago, I remember being at I believe it was in Nashville, and there was a gentleman there, PGA or USGA, that had said, you know, these new Bermudas are good. They're really good, but, you know, I'm not sure that we'll ever play championship golf on them. I'm not sure that they'll go in the upper echelon of clubs. Well, you hand it to all of these superintendents, you hand it to all these turf managers, and you give it to the universities. And the next thing you have there's certainly a different thought process 3 years after it comes out, and 6 years, and then what's the longevity of it going forward. To answer your question right now, I think that it's probably courses that are looking at all of the zoysias are looking for a way to manage a problem that they have, meaning that they're managing trees, they're managing water, they're managing elevation. They're trying to grow a grass, whether it's a bent grass or a bermudagrass, in an area that's not quite suited for it. And and there's a lot of times that zoysia will feel that coming back.
I mean, that was certainly true at Concord with the project you did here in Knoxville. I mean, there was 3 or 4 greens complexes, and it's, for those who are unfamiliar listening, par 3 golf course run by Knox County, very limited in terms of what they can do maintenance wise, but 3 or 4 greens complexes that are heavy shade, and they wanted to resurface, and bermudagrass would make sense given the shade issues that they had. So that's a good example.
Yeah.
Andy, what's the difference in the establishment time for those greens grade zoysias versus Bermuda or versus bent?
From like a sprig standpoint or sod standpoint, or both?
Sprig for greens, so sprigs.
Okay. So, I mean, I've seen, when I was a superintendent, I've grown in champion greens to where they're pretty puttable in 7 weeks, 8 weeks, certainly. And depending on the time of year that they go down and the resources that you have, you can push them for sure. The zoysias seem to be closer to 12 weeks. In an ideal situation, I mean, we've seen some stuff grow in closer to 10 or 10 and a half feet, but it's also that expectation on the other end. I mean, as a guy looking at having them at 11 feet in 10 or 12 weeks, that's probably not a realistic hope, because of the extra maintenance pieces not the extra maintenance pieces, but the specific pieces that are zoysia related versus Bermuda. Some of the cultural practices that go on. I think you get a Bermuda green on earlier, probably 25% earlier, maybe 30% earlier.
Definitely a higher sprigging rate too for the zoysias, right?
That's right. So typically, we're up around 12 to 1600 per acre. So I think that comes out to 35, 40 bushels per 1,000 square feet-ish, somewhere in there. I think that my math is right on that.
It's okay. There's no grades on the show.
That's good.
Georgia or Texas bushel?
or international, or
Yeah.
I've had several guys ask me that over the years, and I said, well, this is what we call a bushel. What would you like to call it?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So kind of going back to more of maybe a 10,000 foot or an industry wide view, did you ever think when you started working in the sod industry, you'd be at a place where you were doing property wide resod jobs, like 35, 50 acres of fairway turf resodded? And do you think that that'll continue?
So it was always the hope that that's where it would grow to. And so many things dictate that, with the economy and different pieces. But no, the original thing was to go after, when the golf segment, how much of this maintenance building business that we talked about earlier, a truck or 2 trucks a year. There's so many golf courses. I mean, you start adding those numbers up, and it's a huge amount of business. But no, it was a huge commitment on the owners of BISOD, Charles and Clark, and to build out the teams to do the things that we did, because we essentially added an entire arm that was not currently growing on the body of BISOD Sodstar, and said, okay, we're going to put an emphasis towards this. We're going to do a farm in Florida. We're going to do these things. And we're going to go and try to find the products that we think are, the industry is telling us, the universities are telling us, different things. So, I remember we were so excited when we did Cherokee Plantation. They did Prism around their greens complexes with Charlie Spears there. And he was my guinea pig. And that's a big thing that we talk about with releasing these grasses, and which ones do we go after and which ones do we evaluate. And it's the reason that you guys see me show up at your place and walk around your plots from time to time, and, you know, to learn. I mean, it's a constant learning thing, and going out to Texas and different places to see these things. But as far as, so we were so excited with Charlie Spears. It was 8.5 acres of grass. And I was amazed, you know, that we were able to do that. And then with the momentum and the different resources that were given to me and to some other folks in BISOD to go and find this business and be a part of it, it really became something that it grew very quickly, exponentially. Within a couple of years, you know, we did the honors course. I mean, Valhalla, which I believe was 32 acres, 34 acres. The honors course was right behind it at 30s. Coyote Club in Sumter, South Carolina, which is a phenomenal golf course. You know, the timing on that project was originally 45 acres of sprigs and maybe 20 acres of sod. And we ended up only sprigging maybe 2 fairways because of the rain and different things. So, you know, and then you fast forward to last year, to where we did course 10, which is 3 times the size of those projects. Yeah. It's wall to wall. And the things that they did there to get that stuff ready at Pinehurst, at the resort, the resources they have, and the commitment to doing what they do, as well as LeBar Golf is a phenomenal company. And those guys, we absolutely stacked sod on top of them, and they asked for more. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge thing. So, but I think that, you know, now that's becoming commonplace. Like I've got deposits on projects in 25, 26, ones that will be, like I said, 26, 27, 28. So we have a good piece of view towards that. But to Brandon's point earlier about the inventory, I believe he was the one that asked, when these projects get delayed, okay, take like our place in Soperton, Georgia. If we come into the spring with a field of turf, and we're able to go into a golf project and pull out 50, 60 acres of grass by, say, July 4th, well, we're going to get that grass back for inventory before it stops growing. But when these projects slow down and they get pushed further into August, so you might get some of it back in Soperton, Georgia, but you're not going to get it back in Pinehurst, where one of our big farms is, or in Dunn, North Carolina, or Nashville, Tennessee, which becomes a major disruption. And that's one of the reasons that I do so much work now way out there, because what is it out there that we can do to impact it with all the things that we've talked about, with customer expectation, with what BISOD can realistically do. I mean, to go out and say, well, we can take these projects on. I mean, some of them you have to pass on, because there's just not enough resources to do that many at one time when they're that big of projects.
So Andy, this is a crazy, wild, way out there question, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think about other fresh market products, right? Say, for example, fruits and vegetables. There's been a tremendous amount of work in figuring out how to extend that inventory longer, right? So that you have a longer marketable period for your product before it spoils. Mm-hmm. Has there been a similar amount of work, or is there an interest in that kind of work from the industry to extend the window, speaking to that inventory piece, like where you could, if you have a project that's delayed, you could still harvest, store in a refrigerated condition or whatever to maintain viability, to then establish an area? I know that there's been a little bit of work in that area. I think John's done a little bit of that work back in the past, looking at, how do we store or save sod or keep things but has there been any real push to extend the window in order to handle some of that variability?
I think so. And, there's been things that we've talked about internally, are there products out there that can, that can help with moisture management, that can help with, leaf tip burn when it's on a roll? How long can it sit on a roll? Is it better in a mini? Is it better in a slab? Is it better on a big roll? And so much of it's dictated, obviously, by temperature and different time of year. I do know with the sprigs, there has been some work about, keeping the sprigs viable, greener, longer. And for the life of me, the product is slipping my mind. I'm sure John will, or one of you guys will know, that they've used on some of the Bermuda grasses and different things in the past as they've harvested sprigs to go in that. We've done a little bit of that. And I do think that there's a place for it. I'm not I think there's probably other ways to get there from a production standpoint, as far as, for instance, we do nighttime harvest. We have a cold storage facility in Soperton, Georgia. And I have seen sprigs that we have sent to like Tiger's Place in Eleuthera, Bahamas, sprigs that were cut in, say, the end of October, that didn't go down for 5 or 6 weeks, that came out of a refrigerated truck. And as we've sent stuff to Southeast Asia, we've shipped stuff to Spain, different places, it's cost prohibitive. But I mean, I know when we ship sprigs, or we get sprigs from Texas to do some of our plantings and different things, all of that's on refrigerated trucks. And there's some folks in the industry, I think out in California for sure, that have done more of that than we have. We try to impact it as best we can from standard operating procedures of what we can do with the nighttime cutting, with shipping it overnight, and those sort of things, to try to limit that as much as possible. It's not overly cost. It's costly to do those things at the scale that we do stuff.
And so much of it, like you said, comes down to temperature. That's why a lot of people do the nighttime harvesting instead of the daytime, because it's cooler and it can get a little bit more shelf life out of it. PGRs are showed to help too, be lowering that temperature buildup. So looking at anti-transparents or something, that might be something, but is it worth the ROI? Because it's such a competitive market for costs and inputs. That's always a challenge as well. Things that might work are just not cost effective potentially.
That's right. And, and the grow-in piece of it as well. I mean, Becky had asked a question earlier about, growing in sprigs. Well, if you're growing in sprigs, as you guys did on the green when Tyler was there, there's a time frame. And does the sprig rate matter? Yes. Does the timing matter? Yes. All those things matter. But it also matters about, if you've got a 50-acre field with a pivot, there's only so much water you're going to put on a 50-acre field with a pivot in a day, to where you can turn on, as I've grown in sprigs on golf courses as a superintendent and different things before, and you've got head-to-head coverage. I mean, you can water Bermuda sprigs, 1 minute every 6 minutes, or whatever that number is, in order to facilitate trying to keep, that perfect adequate moisture on top of it. And, just to right there where the plant is, because you're not deep watering. There's nothing 4 inches deep. I mean, all the sprigs are on top of the ground, or lightly planted. So it's an interesting concept. And it's not one that I think that we would, or that the industry should shy away from. If there's better things to do out there, I think it'd be worth a look.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I mean, we could go a lot of different directions on sod production for hours and hours and hours, but I know we got to get wrapped up here in a few minutes to let people off to lunch. Andy, we talked when we were kind of getting ready for today about, obviously we covered a lot on sod, but also, you expressed an interest, and we all want to spread the word on this as the UT turf team right now on Vols and turf. I brought this up on the screen here for folks to see. can you give a little bit of a primer on Vols and Turf, the Alumni Association that you've been kind of the leader in getting off the ground?
I can. There's so several years ago, I was talking. Well, first of all, Vols and Turf is an alumni association that currently trying to do the final pieces of as a 501c3. It's going to be a public entity, not a mutual, and it's really to serve as a liaison between the alumni at UT, some of us who have obviously benefited from our time at UT, and want to give back to the university with time, effort, and creating opportunities for folks that weren't available when we were at UT. And it's really there's a lot of different levels to be involved with it on. You can be just a simple member that just sends in a membership due and occasionally attend something. We're trying to get, and I say we, myself, John Ballard, Ryan Blair, Amanda Potter, and out of you guys' office, Devin Carroll, who was your grad student, Jim, and Ben Pritchard has been amazingly good at helping us with stuff. And then Becky with some of the stuff that she's done with the Vols and Turf across the United States in different places. So there's a lot of things falling into place, and I'm glad that you guys are on board with it, because I think that it's important, to an industry that's given all of us so much, to keep it going. And as I travel around the country and visit other turf programs, there's a lot of programs that are not thriving out there. There's a lot of programs that are struggling. There's a lot of programs that can't keep kids in the turfgrass program. And I think there's a lot of other opportunities out there, and it's a wonderful profession. And just like I said, Ryan Blair. I mean, I met Ryan when we were 20-something years old at Cherokee, and the relational piece of this business and the turf business and the green industry is amazing. So, but Vols and Turf, like I said, it's going to be a 501c3. We hope to by Beacon Days in September. I know John and Amanda Barcash, some other folks are going to be there. We hope to give the first set of scholarships to some kids at UT in the turf program. Brandon has been helpful in helping. We're going to have to lean on the university a lot to, because we don't know these kids, we don't interface with them. And so it's going to be nice to have that, but it's also been helpful to be able to, shoot a message to John or to Brandon or to you guys and say, hey, how is it that you guys accept scholarships, and how is it you do this and that? So that's really the overall piece of what we want to do. And, I mean, I would hope that in 3 to 5 years, it would be something that there would be enough fundraising piece of it that it would start to spin off scholarships as they do at some of the larger programs. I think Michigan State has a big endowment, Penn State, where Devin was. I mean, there's some big pieces of that. And I just don't see why there's not a reason that we could not be doing this at UT. And I'm so happy that you guys are on board with it. And I mean, I'd love nothing more than to be able to facilitate a grad student for the turf program at UT. I mean, it benefits the turf program at UT, benefits all of us in the turf program, or all of us in the turf industry in Tennessee, regardless of where you put your finger on it.
Well, and we have the same vision, Andy, too, with like the Beacon event. Becky, I know, this is a new foray, and maybe you can bring up on your screen here, not only the alumni network that Andy referenced that is kind of linked to Beacon in a way, and then, kind of our vision for, we'd like to see this grow into something bigger over that same 3 to 5 year arc that you referenced.
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen here. And I did put these links in the chat as well, just to draw your attention to that, those of you that are with us live. So this is what our alumni network looks like. If you click on each of these individual Tennessee Turf Tees, you get a little bit of information about those alumni. In that chat, I also shared with you guys a link that you can use to join the network. And I'll also throw it on the screen here so that we have it in the recorded version as well. Do that. And, you know, Jim, you and I had several discussions with alumni just as we were kind of planning what Beacon might look like. You know, I know that we talked to John Ballard, we talked to a few others because we really, and we've talked about this before on Turf Tuesday, but we really wanted the goal of that event to be really rich engagement with the industry and, you know, opportunities for our alumni to come in. And Andy, I know, you know, you and I have talked about there will be an opportunity for Vols and Turf to present at our reception on that first day. And so we're hopeful that it'll have a very strong alumni presence. Let me share, I can share the agenda for that event. So many screen sharing. Somebody fill this void while I get this up real quick.
Well, I mean, I can comment, you know, so for those that are on with us now, maybe not familiar, Beacon is an in-person event that we're putting together for in September. I think it's September 12th and 13th, Becky.
That's right.
And, you know, our vision is one of the biggest turfgrass programs in the country, particularly from an undergraduate student population place, to really create an event that kind of connects students who are interested in careers in the turfgrass industry with employers who need people to fill jobs within the turfgrass industry. And we're going to try to bring together the employers and the students to make those connections happen to helpfully kind of benefit both groups. Here's the full agenda, Becky. I don't know if you want to walk them through it real quickly.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, just to kind of echo what Jim said, I would say that there's been kind of three resounding things that we've heard from our conversations with folks. So one of the biggest things that we've heard consistently is that people are struggling to find workers. People are struggling to fill positions, whether those are internship positions or other positions at golf courses, sports field complexes, et cetera. So this very first day, you know, the best way to think about it is as a career fair. And so we will have essentially a floor set up where we'll have employers there that'll have interactive booths. Students have been invited from multiple schools in the region to attend. We're really, really hopeful that we can hopefully get somewhere around 75 to 100 students. We'll see what that looks like once the school year starts and we have a little bit better sense. But we've invited, like I said, several schools from the area. Other things that we heard from folks is people just want to get together and have a good time. So we'll have that career fair event. We'll close that out with a reception where we'll actually have some trivia there where our students and our prospective employers will join together on teams, play trivia, have some drinks and hors d'oeuvres. And then day two is where we'll kind of check that final box, which is that we still have a lot of people that really want to come and interact with our research program. So we'll have folks out for some tours on that second day in the morning. We'll have two themed tours. One of those will be focused more on golf and research related to or pertinent to the golf industry. And one will be related more to sports turf. And then we'll close everything out with a lunch with the group. And Dr. Mitchell Richmond is going to share a little bit about his hops research. And as I've said before, this is mostly an excuse for us to have some beer with lunch. And it's a good weekend because we'll have Ag Day that Saturday, which is also another great opportunity for our alumni to come in and interact with Herbert and our college. And then we'll have football that Saturday night. So
does Dr. Sorokin have to sing as part of the Pitch Perfect tour?
Oh, yes. The entire
I can't carry a tune in my pocket.
in
You don't want to hear me singing. I can dance, but I can't sing.
I mean, we could put him in the FIFA building with the lights on. I mean, it'd really be something. We could make a whole production of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Before we break here, let me share really quickly. Again, we'll continue our screen sharing just for our golf course superintendent colleagues who are with us, who need this number right here. This is your GCSAA event approval code for continuing education credits right here, 999-254-02-33609. Again, this has absolutely nothing to do with pesticide accreditation. This is only for golf course superintendent GCSAA members. If you are watching or listening to this as a recording, you want to make sure that when you upload this to the GCSAA website, you put today's event date, August 6th, when you do that. But that code is there for you. And if for some reason you misplace that code or maybe mistranspose one of the digits, you can email me and I will get you the correct number, so you will have it. All right, that's our last share of the hour, I promise. But we, as I said, it brings us to about 12:30. So thanks, Andy. Great conversation. I really enjoyed having you on and learning about sodding at scale. And wish you all the best as those big jobs in 25 and 26 continue.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. And just as a last note for me, anybody who like to reach out to me with Vols and turf, we want you involved on whatever level you want to be involved. So we're not just setting this up for that we can have something that we want as many Vols and turf involved as we possibly can have.
Yeah, and our hope is that with Beacon, it becomes that event that all the alumni want to come back to, right? To be on campus and engage with the program. And yeah, so if you're an alumnus, listen to this, we definitely want to have you engaged in kind of all aspects of what we're doing. So please reach out. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Let everybody get on with their afternoon. But thank you again, Andy. And we will be back next month in August to continue our alumni spotlight with John Ballard, who was referenced today. Say his name and he shall appear for our next episode. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day.